Hello, Untamed Learners. I'm Disha, and we are doing this series on political science and international relations. In my previous session, I have already explained what is the meaning of political theory, and we dealt a little bit about the meaning of nature and scope, exactly what these words mean about any discipline. So, today we will discuss in detail the nature of political theory. So, political theory is basically a combination of political philosophy and political science. Now, the question arises, what is political philosophy and what is political science? So, as the name suggests, political philosophy deals with values and ideal situation. It gives us information about what should be the ideal society, how the ideal moral behavior of a person should be. It basically deals with what ought to be rather than what it actually is prevailing. So it is mostly based on values, and it the approaches involved are largely normative, although we do see some exceptions. We do see that there are scientific elements, but we go with the majority part. So the majority things are related to the norms and values. On the other hand, in political science, this discipline, or we can say that this component, is rather new, uh, because it developed around early 1900s. Okay, and the political philosophy part dates back to Aristotle, Plato, all those thinkers. So we can understand the difference, and that's why we will also see that there was this thing about the decline of political theory. It is because of this difference or these two components. Okay, so focusing on political science. Political science largely focuses on the empirical approach. Basically, these thinkers or theorists wanted to apply the methodology used in natural sciences. The natural sciences are like physics, biology, chemistry. So, whatever methodology was used in these sciences, they wanted to apply it on social sciences. So the behavioral approach and the behavioral approach, which we will deal further, is related to the political science part. Now, George Catlin, in Political Quarterly, says that political theory itself consists of two components: political science and political philosophy. And Andrew Hacker has also recognized these two components of political theory, and he further added that for any theorist to give a overarching theory, they have to deal with both the realms of political philosophy and science. And the basic requirement for today's world is largely the scientific part. However, he recognizes that if you are to give a scientific theory, you cannot give a comprehensive one without having knowledge of what the we can say the ideal situation should be. So here comes the philosophical part. Okay, and he also says that any philosophical theory would be incomplete without scientific backing of it. So these both are largely interconnected, and these both are very crucial part of the political theory. Political theory itself would be incomplete without any one of them. Now, why I'm saying this? Because there has been a debate that political theory should be philosophical or political theory should be scientific. So in the contemporary times, the debate has been largely settled, and we have accepted that both are very important, and the nature of political theory is both scientific, philosophical, as well as there is historical component. So if I were to summarize the nature of political theory, I would say that political theory is part philosophical, part scientific, part historical, and it is very dynamic. Why? Because there is a huge scope for debates. New ideas are welcomed, and the theorist can bring forth their theories. They discuss, they criticize each other, and then the concept of thesis, antithesis, and synthesis, that is very popularly applied here, and it is welcomed here. So it keeps evolving. For example, there were earlier the concept of feminism, ecofeminism, environmentalism was not there. But through debates, through evolution, that is now included in political theory. So that is an example of how it is dynamic. Historical, we already know that we will deal in more detail about historical nature of political theory when we read about the approaches. There I will explain the behavioral, post behavioral, and the traditional approaches. So in traditional approach we have the historical approach as well. Okay, so that was about the nature of political theory. Now we will discuss about the scope of political theory. So scope can be understood on the basis of these two components, like philosophy and science. So these are the two components. So whatever is the scope of these two components is the scope of political theory as well. However, we must remember that whatever component you are focusing on, the methodology will change accordingly. Now, I will explain in detail the meaning of method of approach when we deal about approach in the next session. For now, just understand that if you are thinking about political philosophy, so your approach will be normative. Like in political philosophy, the scope is about norms, about values, what is right, what is ideal. So we deal about concepts like justice, liberty. So we do not focus on the scientific approach. We think about normative approach. Okay, and then when we talk about institutions, when we see the human behavior, which is a part of political science, and that phase we deal about the scientific descriptive approach. So apart from that, we have to remember that I mentioned about George Catlin and I mentioned about Andrew Hecker in this session. So kindly remember that, take a note of it, because whenever you talk about a nature and approaches, you can add these two names. See, in when we come in higher standards or when we write for competitive exams, be it UPSC or UGC NET, or even if it is masters, you have to mention the names of theorists. That is very important, as much as you can. Now, as much as you can doesn't mean that you fill your answer with that, no. But if you're giving a concept and you back up each concept with two names, like for nature and scope I used only two, Andrew Hecker and George Catlin. We could have also dealt about Robert Dahl, or I could have mentioned about David Held, but that is not important. So many are not required. You need to focus on 2 to 3. So I'm giving only that much that you can recall and use actually in exam, not to just mug up so many facts. I hope you clearly understood the nature and scope of political theory, and you will understand these concepts further, because I have started with this topic because it is in sequence. We have to like follow one sequence, but the subject is such that it is largely interconnected, because you need to have knowledge of the Western political thought to understand these. You need to have the knowledge of approaches to understand these concepts. So keep following from the starting itself, and as we go further, you will when you recall these things, it will connect better in your mind. I have tried to keep it as simple as possible. I hope it was insightful. In the next session we will discuss about the approaches, the evolution of political theory, and we will also talk about the significance of political theory. If it does not go too long, because I want to keep the videos very short, not more than 10 minutes. So that's the target, because I don't want to give you so much information which you cannot retain. It is supposed to be a friendly session, not an official lecture. Okay, so if the time permits, I will also add the debate on decline of political theory, or we can deal about the political theory's decline part in separate session. Thank you for listening. I hope you found it insightful. I'll see you in the next.